Okay, so the last thing we're going to talk about is hypertrophy. And hypertrophy just means that something has grown bigger. So when you exercise and you're doing curls and your biceps get bigger, they have hypertrophied. But we're not talking about that kind of muscle. We're talking about cardiac muscle. And the most common hypertrophy that we see is left ventricular hypertrophy. So this right here. So again, when you exercise with weights, you lift weights, you're doing exercise, the muscle will grow. Now, what kind of exercise is the cardiac muscle going to do? It's going to pump against very high blood pressure. Because remember, it's got to get all the blood to go down through the aorta and to the rest of the body. But if there's a lot of force it needs to generate in order to do that, because the blood pressure is high, well, then the left ventricular muscle gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, this is not the only thing that can grow in size. There are other things that can hypertrophy, like you can have atrial hypertrophy, right? Maybe you have a blockage in one of the valves here, and so blood cannot flow through here very easily. And so what happens is it collects here, and this thing gets put under stress, and when the muscle's under stress, it hypertrophies. You can have right ventricular hypertrophy if you have pulmonary hypertension, because the right ventricle has to pump to push blood into the lungs, right? So if the lungs have a lot of resistance due to pulmonary hypertension, then you can get right ventricular hypertrophy. But we're really going to talk just about left ventricular hypertrophy, what we call LVH. And there's lots of different ways that you can measure it. But we're going to talk about this criteria here, which is the Sokolow-Lyon criteria, which says that if the R in V5 and V6 plus the S in V1 is greater than 35 millimeters, you have left ventricular hypertrophy. Let's take a look. So let's take a look at this EKG here, and then let's count and see what we do. So I'm going to look at V1 first of all. I have to zoom in because it's kind of small. We remember that each one of these blocks, big blocks, is 5 millimeters. So that's 5. We know that. That's 5. And we know that this is another 1, 2, 3. So we got 3 there, and then maybe another 2 here. So it looks like we got 15. The V1 is about 15 millimeters. Okay, and then it said let's go to V5 and V6, so let's go over there. Which one do we think looks bigger? I think V5 does, so let's take a look there. All right, so we know that this is 5, this is 5, this is 5, this is 5. All right, and then we have another, looks like another 5 there, and then 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4. 4, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 25 plus 4 equals 29. All right, and then we add them up and we say, okay, we had 29 here in V5 and we had V1 is 15, so V1 plus V5 or V6, right, is that greater than 35 millimeters? Well, let's take a look. We have 15 plus 29, which equals 44, and that is definitely greater than 35 millimeters. And so I think we can pretty much say that we have left ventricular hypertrophy here. Now, the quick and easy way that I tend to look at it is I just kind of eyeball it, and I say, look, if this QRS is going into the next QRS, or the QRS is going off the graph paper, it probably is left ventricular hypertrophy. Now, that's just a way to kind of estimate, but I would use the actual thing of counting and measuring to determine if you have left ventricular hypertrophy. We will talk about atrial hypertrophies and right ventricular hypertrophy later on, maybe in your M3 or M4 year, but this is just to get you started, okay? If you guys have any questions about any of this, please let me know. Thanks. Bye-bye.